Hi everyone, I'm Ginell Cooper, and today we're going to look into some different techniques for how to do corner-to-corner crochet and trying to minimize the holes that it creates. So I'm about to do my first large-ish corner-to-corner crochet project, and I wanted to make sure that I understood the best way to do this stitch. And also I wanted to teach my Facebook group the best way to do the stitch. It's hard, you know, it's kind of hard to unlearn things. So I wanted to teach them the right way the first time, right? So I came across an article that went to a blog that talked about doing no holes corner to corner crochet. And I was like, what? This is revolutionary. And I read it and it looked like it was gonna be great and everything, and then I tried it and it was okay, but it wasn't what I wanted it to be. So then one of the ladies, Linda, on my Facebook group pointed out that she does a minimalized holes version, and I tried that version too. So what I decided to do is I'm gonna show you all three versions of ways that you can minimize the holes in your corner to corner crochet projects or delete the holes completely, but I just want to show you like the pros and cons of all three of those ways. I don't know if you remember this, but this was my basics video. I did this for a kitchen cloth, and not knowing what I was doing, I already did minimize the holes because I went from doing chain 6 and chain 3 down to chain 5 and chain 2. And I was just following the rules of double crochet. When you double crochet something, instead of chaining, a lot of people tell you to chain up 3 and then double crochet. I always chain up 2. It gets rid of that gappiness on the side. And so I followed those same rules doing corner to corner, and it worked out great. This cloth has been stained already. It's been washed a gazillion times, and it's already much loved, right? You can tell it's got some stuff going on. But when you spread it out, you can still see the gaps in there, right? But you do have to spread it out. Like it's pretty tight. So far, I'm still kind of hooked on this way of doing it, but I'm gonna show you 2 other ways that might be better for you. And I'll show you why they might be better and also why they might not be better. So we're gonna call this the one chain less technique. This is the one that got me excited in the first place. This is the no holes corner to corner crochet technique, and it's done with a linked double crochet. Now, I didn't even know what a linked double crochet was, so I was excited to learn that. And if anything, if I don't end up using this, I'm glad that I learned how to do a linked double crochet, because what that does is it links your double crochets together and there's no holes between your double crochets, which is nice, right? Especially if you're doing a blanket or something. It does give a different texture. It actually kind of looks more like a Tunisian crochet texture to it, but there are some drawbacks, and we'll talk about that. So we'll call this the linked double crochet technique. And then this is interesting because it is exactly the same as this. The only difference, you can see it's smaller. The only difference is that instead of doing 3 double crochets, you're doing a cluster of 3 double crochets together. So like if you were doing a minimize, you know how you grow a double crochet by doing 3 in the same stitch and then you minimize it by bringing them all together at the top? It's a cluster really. And so you still have the same number of chains on the side and the holes are exactly the same size, but because the stitches are smaller and it kind of pushes everything together, it makes those holes look less, like they're not as big. They're still there, but you just don't notice them as much. So it's almost kind of an optical illusion. But you can see that it does make the whole thing a little bit smaller. So we're gonna call this the double crochet cluster technique. So let's go ahead and get started, and I'll show you at least these 2 techniques. This one right here is already in my basics video. So if you go back, I'll link it in the top right corner up here, but if you go back to my corner to corner crochet basics kitchen cloth video, it'll teach you exactly how to do that and how to change color and how to increase and decrease and all that stuff. So go back to that to learn this one. But I'm gonna go ahead and teach these 2 here today, and then you can help me decide which one I'm gonna use, because I still haven't decided. The project I'm gonna do next is going to be a pocket scarf. So as soon as I said pocket scarf, everybody on my Facebook page got excited because they thought I meant pocket shawl. I've already done a pocket shawl and I've made 3 of them, and that's more pocket shawls than I'll probably ever need. But I understand that that's a very exciting thing. Everybody's really into pocket shawls right now. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna make my pocket scarf, but I'm going to make it so that you can also make it a pocket shawl. It's just about changing the size, right? So the yarns that I'm looking at are this one for the base, or this one for the base. Both of them are beautiful, right? I love them both. But this one has some pretty strong color changes, almost like stripes. This one's a little bit more minimal, like it's more of a gradual change. That's gonna be the base. The pockets will be something completely different. So that's what I'm looking at, and that's what I'm trying to decide, which stitch would be better. So let's get right into it, and then you can help me decide which one's gonna be better. I'm gonna go ahead and start with this technique because it is the closest to this one. This will be the easiest one to understand because it's very similar to that. You're just changing one little thing. So we're gonna start with this beginning. And this is the double crochet cluster. I'm gonna call it the cluster technique. Some people are calling it a half double crochet, a half double crochet. It's not. It really is like 3 double crochets pulled together. So what you're gonna do is you're gonna go ahead and chain 5, just like we did with this one. And then you're going to go ahead and you're going to act like you're doing a double crochet into the 3rd one from the end, right there. Yarn over and go through 2, and then leave those 2 on the loop, or on the hook. Yarn over and then go through the next one. Yarn over and go through 2, and leave 3 on the hook. Last one, yarn over, go through the last chain, and then, or actually the first chain, and then yarn over, go through 2. Now you have 4 loops on your hook. Now you're gonna yarn over and go through all 4. And I was like, how is that gonna work? That looks more like a triangle than a square. As you can see, it works. So just keep going. Now, when you first start this, it's going to feel actually more gappy than this one. But once it gets going, it kind of pushes everything together and creates that sort of illusion. So we're gonna go ahead and increase. We've finished the one on the corner. So we're gonna go ahead and increase and by chaining 5. And then you're gonna go ahead and yarn over and go down to that 3rd chain from the square, pull up a loop, yarn over, go through 2, just like that. Yarn over, pull up, or go through the 2nd chain, pull up a loop, yarn over, go through 2, leave those on there. Yarn over, go through 2. Now you have 4 loops on the hook, and now you're gonna pull them all together. So yarn over, go through all of them. Now, this is when you want to turn, right? I always chain up and increase first and then turn. For some reason, it makes more sense to me. And you're going to want to find that double crochet or that chain 2 space, and you're going to slip stitch into that space. And then this time you're going to chain 2 because we're not increasing, we're just doing the other side of this. Yarn over, do the same thing. All of it in that space. Just like that, yarn over, go through all 4. See how that gap looks really big? For some reason, the first one does, and then after that, they start to minimize more. So go ahead and keep going. I'm gonna do one more row for you. 5 chains. Go down to the 3rd one from the square. Okay, and then yarn over, go through all 4. Turn it, find your chain 2 hole, and then you're going to slip stitch into that hole if you can, and then chain 2, do the same thing, all in that hole. I tried doing this with a chain 1. I know some of you were like, well, what if you just chained 1 right there? And what it ends up doing is it kind of takes the whole square look away from it. Okay, so as you can see, it's a little gappy to begin with, which it was. I'm trying to figure out where that's where my beginning start was right there. But as you keep continuing on, it kind of smushes it all together because you're working with clusters instead of actual blocks. And it brings it tighter, makes your squares smaller. So if you're working with like a graph that has a lot of different colors, then you want your little squares to be smaller, that might be a good choice for you. But it's really not that different than this, to be honest. Those gaps feel bigger to me than those ones, so that's true. So just something to consider that is, so this is the 1 chain less technique. This is the double crochet cluster technique. And now I'm going to show you how to do this one, which was the one that got me excited to begin with. But I don't know if you can tell what it is on here already that's throwing me. So I'll show you the technique first, and then we'll talk about the pros and cons. So this one is slightly more complicated, but once you get what they're trying to do, what she's trying to do, I'm gonna link the original techniques that I learned in the description so that the original artist gets credit, but also so if I don't explain it well, maybe you can look at them. We're gonna start with a chain or a slip stitch. And just like before, you're gonna chain 5. Okay, so now we're gonna take a little bit of a note from a Tunisian style crochet, and you're gonna come down and grab this little bump. You're not gonna go through the chain, grab the back of the bump there. And that's the 4th one from the top. Pull up a loop, and then go into this one. You can actually go through the whole chain if you want. Oops, it'd be good if you actually went through the yarn. Hold on. This is the 3rd one from the end, just like we usually do. Pull up a loop, and now you're gonna do a regular double crochet. So yarn over, go through 2, yarn over, go through 2. That is your chain up and your first double crochet. But now this is where we're gonna link it. See that vertical bar right there? What you're gonna do is instead of wrapping and going down, you're going to go through this vertical bar and pull up a loop. And then you're going to go down through here, the chain, the middle chain, and pull up a loop. Now you just do a double crochet like normal. And what that does, now you have 2 double crochets and your chain 2 on the side, but see how they're linked by that little bar right there? It keeps them together so you don't have holes in between them, which is kind of cool. And it does give kind of a cool texture. So we'll do it another time here. Go through this vertical bar, pull up a loop, go through the last chain, and pull up a loop. And then yarn over, go through 2, and yarn over, go through 2. So this is your corner block on the end, and it is made up of 2 chains on the side and 3 linked double crochets, and you can see the links right there in the middle. So now we're gonna make things a little more interesting. We're going to increase. So go ahead and chain 5 again. And go to that back bump right there, which is the 4th chain up. Pull up a loop. Then you can just go through the regular 3rd chain, pull up a loop, and then yarn over, go through 2, yarn over, go through 2. That created that vertical bar right there. So then go through that bar, pull up a loop, go through the 2nd or the middle chain, I guess, pull up a loop, and then do your double crochet. Okay, now things are gonna get interesting. Go through the bar, pull up a loop, go through the 3rd chain, pull up a loop, don't yarn over and go through. Now this is when we're gonna turn it like we normally would, and you're gonna go through the top of those double crochets right there. You're gonna go through the middle one, yarn over, and pull through 2. Then go through the top one, yarn over, and pull through 2. So what that did was there's no chain 2 you're going through, you're just going through the top of those double crochets basically. And it makes, there's no hole right there, which is kind of cool, right? You're still with me, hopefully. So far I was like, woohoo, this is exciting. So chain up 2. This is where it gets a little complicated. You have to go into that bar right there, that back bump, and sometimes it's hard to find if you're pulling too tight. So when you do that second chain, be gentle with it. And then for me, you can go into this. For me, I keep going into the back bar. It's just easier and I just like the look better. So pull that up and then yarn over, go through 2, just like you would do a double crochet, yarn over, go through 2. Now go through the bar and then go through this. There's essentially two holes right here to work with. I tend to go through the one that's the hardest to go through, and then this one, or there's this big gap. I don't like going through the gap because it actually makes a hole, and we're trying to not do holes, right? So I go through this middle stitch right there, which is part of that chain, and then yarn over, go through 2, yarn over, go through 2. Okay, bar, pull up a loop, last stitch. If you can get in it. See, the one thing about this that I am not sure I'm sold on is it goes a lot slower than corner to corner because you're trying to like get into these tight little stitches everywhere. You do get a rhythm to it, but not the same rhythm. Yarn over, go through 2, yarn over, go through 2. Okay, so we've done the corner and we've increased. We're gonna increase another row so you can see what happens next. So chain 5, go through the back bump, the 4th one up, pull up a loop, and then go through the actual 3rd chain up, pull up a loop, yarn over, go through 2, yarn over, go through 2. Go through the vertical bar right there, pull up a loop, middle chain, pull up a loop, yarn over, go through 2, go through 2. Okay, bar, pull up a loop, chain, pull up a loop, turn it, right, so that it's going the right direction. This little guy really should always be going down, right? Then go through the middle, see these 3 stitches right here? Go through the middle one, yarn over, pull through a loop, and then go through 2. So it's like you're basically yarning over and going through 2 like you would for a double crochet. You're just including this part in it. You're like attaching it, or what would you, joining as you go, basically. So then go through there, pull up a loop, that's the top of the 3, that's the top one, and go through the last 2. So now you have attached that square. So chain 2, do the same thing, finish over here. So that looks really cool, right? Like it has a cool texture to it. Here's my problem with it. When you start changing colors, like, okay, so here's what I love about it. It is nice and square. It's perfect, right? This one's a little bit wonky. It's not quite perfect. It's a little squishy in places, but it does have a cool texture. I like it, right? This one is square, flat. There's not a lot of texture. It's just a nice piece of fabric. But when you change color, it does that. Because you're basically joining as you go, and it creates this line right here, which if you're working with a solid color yarn, doesn't matter, right? Maybe even if I'm working with this yarn, it doesn't matter because it just so gradually changes, it won't make that much of a difference. But if you are working with, if you're trying to do a graph GAN or you're trying to do some intricate color changes, I don't think you're gonna like it. And the other thing too is if you're doing 2 rows, there'll be a front and a back. But there's 3 rows in the middle, so that switched it. So now I've got those lines on this side and that side. And can you imagine if you were doing just this really intricate picture or something? So anyway, I would maybe recommend this if you're using solid yarn because it is just, there's no holes. Look at that. it's great. It's a great piece of fabric, and you can still do the corner to corner technique. It is, however, slower, and it does create these weird lines in here. If you like that look, I mean, it does kind of look cool and rustic, and I called it a dirty corner to corner, like a dirty martini, because it's not perfect, but it is cool looking. So far, honestly, if I'm gonna be totally honest, this is still my favorite. So even though it has the gaps in it, it still is just a nice clean finish. This one would probably be my second favorite because I do like the bumpiness of it, and I do like that the gaps are slightly smaller on there, but it isn't like it doesn't make a perfect square. Now, if I was making a much bigger piece, probably that would all work itself out. And then this one, I don't know. I think I would save this for when you're doing a solid color or when you're doing a variegated yarn. So as you know, whenever I try to do Saturday stitches, I usually introduce you a stitch and then I'll show you what it looks like in a large swatch, and then I'll make that swatch into a twisted head wrap. So keeping with tradition, that's what I did. I wanted to see what this new technique, the no holes technique with the linked double crochets would look like with a variegated yarn. And this is how it turned out. So I still think it looks cool. Like it definitely has a speckly effect to it. You can see where the color changes happened on there. But if you're working with a variegated yarn, it's kind of cool looking. So maybe you'll like that. It is going to be a slower technique, in my opinion. I will also link in the corner how to do the twisted head wrap. It's pretty easy. You just put these two together, sew it together, and then turn it like that. So check out that video. I'll put the link in the corner so you can figure that out. Which stitch would be best for my corner to corner scarf? I think I'm going to use a flower on the picture pocket. So the question is, are we going to do the double crochet cluster technique with this color, or are we going to do the no holes linked double crochet technique with this color? What do you guys think? Let me know in the comments, or come on the Facebook group at Ginell's Quarantine Crochet and let me know in the comments of the link to this video what you think would be best. Honestly, some of you, by the time you see this video, I may have already made the decision and made the next video, but I still like to hear what you have to say about it. And what are you going to use it for in your projects? Here we go. There is the traditional twisted head wrap that I made out of my sample piece. I hope that you enjoyed this video, and I hope it helped you decide what technique works best for you. If you're interested, this is the yarn I used for this piece, and it is Premier Everyday, and the color is called Northern Lights. Please let me know what you think in the comments, and I will see you next time.